The Commission on Social Witness moves to adopt proposed action of immediate witness F, found in the CSW alert, stop the hate, protect and support our transgender and gender non-conforming family.
Having heard the motion to pass this AIW to stop the hate, protect and support our transgender and gender non-conforming family, and having heard a second, it is so moved and we are ready for debate. But we have four. I'm confused. You're going to tell us what went on in the CSW. I like it. I like it. Tell us what went on there. I recognize the delegate at the amendment microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is the Reverend Caitlin Cotter, and I am delighted to talk to you about what happened in our mini-assembly. Like the other mini-assemblies, we found that we had an amazingly thoughtful and careful discussion of this issue, and more than that, we had fun together, engaging in this process, joking, laughing, and even dancing. Yes, there was dancing in our excitement for this action of immediate witness. As you can see, reading through this AIW, most of the suggested changes are about making it more inclusive and strengthening the language. Those in the room felt the original proposal didn't go far enough in indicating just how perilous the lives of our transgender and gender non-conforming friends and family are. Those in the room did take out some small things you'll notice as you look through the text, such as the reference to the seventh principle, which people in the room felt didn't add significantly, and in fact potentially weakened just a touch the action of immediate witness. They did suggest two major additions to the actions of immediate witness, which you will see under the unincorporated amendments. Those two suggestions weren't included because the AIW felt that we didn't have the authority to add such major chunks of text, and that would rest in the authority of the delegates in this room. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So we're ready to have our debate. I recognize the delegate at the pro microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I am Vanstrom Dracul from UU Fellowship of DeKalb, Illinois. I support this AIW because I am a transgender man. This is not a choice, not a silly choice. My only decision was to be true to myself. Since I started transition in 2013, I was concerned for my safety. But after unjust bathroom laws, and especially the shooting in Orlando, I do not feel safe in this country anymore. Put yourself in my shoes and imagine this, because we can go through a lot of violence. I go into a men's restroom just to do my business peacefully. So far, I am another white man, but heaven forbid someone discovers I'm transgender. Instantly, I become just a piece of meat, less than human, an object someone else feels entitled to use for his own pleasure. Disabled and having health conditions that render me physically weak, I am defenseless. Can I trust authorities to help me after those bathroom laws? Of course not. I'll be the one to be blamed and put on trial instead of the attacker. Our first principle applies to all without exception. As Ellie Leib's song, titled Post, says, I shouldn't have to live where I stand. I shouldn't change who I am to count as a human. When will we, the transgender and non-conforming, gender non-conforming people, will start counting as human?
Thank you. Thank you. I recognize the delegate at the pro microphone.
Thank you. Okay. I am Sarah Wade Smith from Allegheny Unitarian Universalist Church in Pittsburgh, and I am a transgendered woman, which means I am directly affected by the ongoing waves of discrimination against transgender people. Some of you may have the blessing of not knowing about a holiday if I can call it that we have in the transgender community. The Day of Remembrance, when we gather every year to commemorate those transgendered men and women who have been killed in hate crimes over the last year. It's almost never less than 50. Because we are different, people think that they have the right to commit violence against us. People think that they have the right to deny us the right to live, a place to live. These bathroom bills are, words cannot express my rage at this. It's basically the root of all oppression, which is taking a small marginalized group, making them the other, and then legitimizing violence against them. Not only do we have these laws being passed, we have Southern politicians actually boasting about how if they see a transgendered woman using the bathroom, they will beat her up or shoot her. We need to stand against this. We need to stand for the right that I thought was enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, that everyone, without exception, had the right to life, to liberty, and to the pursuit of their own happiness. I am asking for your support.
Thank you. I recognize the delegate at the procedure microphone.
Steve Hollingsworth, Unitarian Universalist Church of Chattanooga. I'm here to move to suspend the rules for the purpose of substituting for the word family, the word siblings in the title of...
You're out of order, sir. I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry. Thank you.
Why am I out of
Thank you.
order?
The amendments go over here, and they can't be inserted unless they are unincorporated. Thank you. Thank you. I recognize the delegate at the pro microphone.
Thank you. My name is Linda Fingerson. I'm a member at the Unitarian Church of Sharon, Massachusetts. Living in Massachusetts, I had the great pleasure of lobbying in support of a bill extending public accommodations rights to transgender and gender nonconforming people. These bills are commonly known as bathroom bills, but that politicized, biased interpretation masks what is in fact a very simple concept, that a trans person who already has the right under law to work at, say, a Dunkin' Donuts, or to drive a bus for the MBTA, should also have the right under law to be served a donut and a coffee without being chucked out of the restaurant, and to get on a bus and ride in peace. That's simple. The fight was incredibly hard in Massachusetts. It is not over, but it will be tougher elsewhere. On one of the legislative visits, the congressman with whom we met revealed that his office had received phone calls on the passage of the public accommodations bill at a ratio of 200 calls against to every one single call for the bill. The other side is that well organized, and they are experts at the manufacture of unfounded fears. During those visits to the State House, I learned that I am not now, myself, the typical advocate for trans and gender nonconforming people's rights, but rather that many of you all are. I am not married. I don't have children. I have no trans people who are immediately members of my family. At the level of lawmaking, it is, however, family members working hand in hand with trans people who are changing the perception of this fight on a visceral level for the general population. It is the families who live in fear of losing their gender nonconforming loved ones to the scourge of suicide and hate crimes that are now speaking out on behalf of their children especially, and also in immeasurable grief for trans and gender nonconforming people of color who are at the greatest risk and whose names we must say and say and say. Are we ready to answer empathetically and passionately?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's take a breath here, and then I'll recognize the delegate at the procedures microphone. And I would remind folks that we do have chaplains in the House if you feel your anger rising or being triggered in any way. So I recognize the delegate at the procedures microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm with the Reverend Lynn Marshall from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Concord, New Hampshire, and I've noticed that our off-site delegate votes have been showing on the screen, but as we vote, there has been no mention of their participation.
Thank you, and thank you for drawing it to my attention. And I have a little tool here that tells me if there's anybody wishing to be in the pro or con or procedural, so I'm interacting with them in that way. So they've been participating.
It would be good for us to be reminded they're participating.
Thank you. Oh, okay, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, because to suspend the rules suspend the rules, the amendment needs to be first.
His amendment.
No, he doesn't have an amendment, but he wants to make an amendment. He wants to suspend the rules as to the rule of amendment.
Ah, okay. My parliamentarian and I have counseled here, and the gentleman at the procedures microphone that I ruled out of order, apparently I misunderstood what he was trying to say, and he wants to move to suspend the rules regarding not admitting other amendments into this discussion. So the rules as stated now, the amendment time and period has closed, and we're debating the main motion. So I need someone to move to suspend the rules. There's a move and a second. Is that what you want to speak to, sir?
I had thought I had correctly stated my motion before, which the parliamentarian has given me, which was I move to suspend the rules for the specific and sole purpose of substituting the word siblings for the word family, at which point.
And I apologize. I misunderstood that it was a motion and thought you were trying to introduce an amendment. So now we have a motion to suspend the rules relative to amendments to see if we want to consider another amendment.
For the sole purpose of making a motion.
Yeah. For the sole purpose of making a motion to bring in one more amendment. Is there a motion to do that? You've made the motion. Is there a second to do that? So we're ready to vote on suspending this specific rule to allow one amendment to come in. Ready to vote on that? Those in favor of suspending the rule for a few moments to advance one amendment, raise your card. Thank you. Hands down. Those opposed? Clearly, the amendment to the motion to suspend the rules fails, and we can move on to where we are in the debate. And I will recognize the delegate at the pro microphone.
Brianne Bird from East Shore UU Church in Kirtland, Ohio. I speak here today as the wife of a gender-fluid partner and the stepmom of a 12-year-old little girl who will proudly tell you she has a transgender sibling who is her favorite person in the world. I speak today to amplify the voices of us messy queers and our allies that call our church home. I seek to lift up other voices who cannot be here today but still desperately need this AIW as an act of faith from this assembly. Just yesterday during session, a transgender woman was challenged while trying to enter a bathroom right here. She endured the pain and emotional violence of being misgendered in a state that has not even yet passed a bathroom bill. These laws, along with any more that may pass, are just that, a state-directed act of violence perpetrated on a population already living under the constant threat of violence, discrimination, police brutality, and murder. These statistics are rising. The urgent need for us to stand against this hatred is the definition of what an AIW is for and is central to every principle we teach. This week also, a hate group chose to protest us because we support GLBTIQ rights. We responded by standing together in an act of love that made me proud to be a UU. I challenge you today to stand together again to counter hate with love. I challenge us all to draw a line in the sand and recognize that if we, as a faith, claim to support the dignity and rights of all people across the entire spectrum of gender, we cannot stand by and choose to not be the voice within our churches and greater world fighting against this oppression. I ask you to see that we cannot refuse to take this first step and believe that we are living any kind of covenantal or beloved relationship with our gender diverse members and ministers in our own churches, let alone a wider world. I implore you to make sure someday, never again will I feel the pain in my heart that appeared when listening to a speaker on gender identity asked if they feel there is hope for them within our churches, and I heard the hesitation in their answer. We cannot create sanctuary or justice within our own spaces if we are not willing to stand with them in the greater world.
Thank you. Do we have Do we have someone at the amendment mic? Do we have an amendment to make at the amendment mic? I recognize the delegate at the amendment mic.
Angela Bridgman, UU Peace Fellowship, Raleigh, North Carolina, and one of the sponsors of this AIW. I'm calling unincorporated Amendment A, inserting after line 39, pledge to educate ourselves and our faith and civic communities in order to provide ever safer, more inclusive, and potentially healing spaces for transgender and gender nonconforming people. My reasons for calling this specific amendment, and because this came out of the mini assembly that we had, which was a very positive and moving experience for us, I might add, is that several LGBTIQ people, myself included, have had negative experiences because we are LGBTIQ right here at this very General Assembly. I will also say that this was not the fault of the UUA or of General Assembly or any UUs, but we have had these negative experiences, and it has become clear to me that we do need to educate ourselves so that we can also educate others. I also wish to point out that the Right Relations team did a fabulous job with dealing with these situations, but the point is the situations should never have happened in the first place, and we need to further educate ourselves as well as others. Thank you.
Thank you. So the amendment that you're now considering is inserting after line 39 the group of text that I hope we can screen up, but it's on your handout. Pledge to educate ourselves and our faith and civic communities in order to provide ever safer, more inclusive, and potentially healing spaces for transgender and gender non-conforming people. Is there a second? There is a second. So we're now debating whether to add this amendment. So I'd go to the pro microphone and recognize the delegate there.
I'm Carolina Graham from Church of the Larger Fellowship. I was one of the team of people who crafted this in the General Assembly. They say that all justice work is internal work. And the mood in the room at the time was that we really, really do need to look within, and we do need to look in the mirror because of the experiences that our LGBTQIA family have told us about in this space. So I was a little surprised, honestly, that we took that out. I see in the rest of the statement, we are educating all of those people out there. I hear precious little about us educating us here now. I ask that you support this amendment.
Thank you. Does anyone else at the pro microphone wish to speak in favor of this amendment? I recognize the delegate at the pro microphone.
Yes, my name is Reverend Fred Hammond, minister at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And I'm speaking in favor of this amendment because I know the importance of this type of education. We had a member of our congregation who was in transition, and we needed to do education of our congregation before they came out. And it was very, very important and affirming to that individual that we did that work. And I urge you to pass this amendment.
Thank you. Are there others who wish to speak in favor of this amendment? I recognize the delegate at the pro mic.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Keller-Scholl. I'm the delegate from Needham, Massachusetts, and I was the one who was at the mini-assembly and proposed that we include educate ourselves for a very specific reason. When I attended the Portland General Assembly, I went to a mini-assembly that was on, if I recall, funding election practices. I anticipated it to be a rather boring session because that's just not my thing, but I went as a good delegate. And what happened was a friendly amendment was put forth to withdraw gender-inclusive language and replace it with binary gender language. And rather than a discussion happening that was uplifting and affirming of all people, it broke down to a conversation on grammar. This is not a conversation on grammar. As the parent of a transgender, non-binary child, I continue to educate myself every single day. The education doesn't end. We can't go out and educate others if we're not willing to educate ourselves, and we have a lot of work to do. So I urge you to include this amendment.
Thank you. And it's my understanding the only reason that it wasn't incorporated was that it was a large chunk of text, and the CSW team thought that it needed to be fully exposed here in the general session. I recognize the delegate at the procedures mic.
Hi, I'm Linda Sanders from First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. I'd like to call the question.
Is there a
on this
second?
Amendment.
Okay, we know what we're doing now. If we vote in favor of calling the question, we are shutting off debate of this amendment and can proceed to vote on the amendment. So all in favor of calling the question, please raise your cards. Thank you very much. I think I know the answer. Those opposed? The question is called. The debate on further debate on this amendment is now closed, and we are now ready to vote on whether to accept the amendment. So those in favor of accepting this amendment, raise your card. Oh, easy peasy. Thank you. Hands down. Those opposed? Right. Okay, the amendment passes, and we're all good with this. Excellent. So now we have another amendment. I recognize the delegate at the amendment microphone.
Reverend Dr. Michelle Walsh, from Affiliate Community Minister from United First Parish Church in Quincy. I move to incorporate unincorporated Amendment B, pledge to educate social workers and educators about transgender and gender non-conforming people's needs.
Thank you. Is there a second? There is a second. So we now are talking in favor or against the unincorporated Amendment B to insert after line 39, pledge to educate social workers and educators about transgender and gender nonconforming people's needs. So I recognize the delegate at the pro microphone to speak in favor of this.
Okay, back over here, Reverend Dr. Michelle Walsh from United First Parish Church in Quincy. While I am a minister, I am also a clinical social worker. I know that there is a tremendous need to continue to educate social workers in this area, as well as other educators. I'm very ignorant still in this area. This is a huge learning area for me, even though I am a social worker. Social work schools vary in their commitments on this issue, particularly if the social work schools are religiously affiliated in any way, which many are. So I do believe that this is something that is significant that we need to recognize. Social workers are at the forefront clinically of working with people and engaging in social justice work. We need to be out there on this issue as well as the other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is another one of those amendments that had broad support in the mini-assembly, but the CSW felt like it was a lot of text that the full assembly should consider. Looks like we're ready to vote on this amendment. Sorry, there's a con. I'm sorry. I recognize the delegate at the con microphone.
Vanessa Burchell from Butman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm actually going to go against this one because I am a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida, and I'm wondering how we can go out and educate others when we still are not educated. So who's supposed to be doing the education to the social workers and the educators if we don't really know what we're doing yet? So I think that we have to kind of hold the brakes. We want to do too much. So first, let's focus on what we need to do, and then we could be able to go out and educate others once we have a good idea about what they actually need to know.
Thank you. So anyone wants to speak at the pro microphone? I think have you not spoken on this issue? I can't remember. I see you so often.
I know.
I recognize the delegate at the very friendly comment. I recognize the delegate at the pro microphone.
So I'm Carolina Kravarik Graham from the Church of the Larger Fellowship. I should just wear a hat or something. One of the reasons, and I really want to say I appreciate that comment, and I am a big educate yourself before you think you can educate somebody else, but we have quite a few people listed, we have law enforcement and health professionals, et cetera, listed, and this was inclusive. When we did this, we wanted to include social workers as well because they were social service providers. I feel like I don't want to leave them out.
Thank you. I recognize the delegate at the pro mic. Excuse me. Sorry. I recognize the delegate at the procedure mic.
I just have a question. John Cowley from Sioux City, Iowa Unitarian Church. Looking at A and B, and I'm not arguing about yes or no, you've got to rewrite the sentences if you put those in the same place.
Well, it'll be perfected once, depending on what gets included or not, so it's good grammar and well punctuated. Thank you. I recognize the delegate at the con microphone.
Hi, my name is Lori Albright. I'm from the First Unitarian Church of Cleveland, and I am complete support of the need for the education of social workers and other people. However, to think that Unitarian Universalists are going to take on that job I think that it would be good if it were worded to advocate for social workers being educated in this area would be fabulous. But as it stands, it doesn't seem like something that we want to take on the responsibility for.
Thank you for that. That would require an amendment, which would be out of order because it wasn't discussed in the mini assembly, so therefore isn't on the unincorporated. I recognize the delegate at the pro microphone.
Angela Bridgman, UU Peace Fellowship, Raleigh, North Carolina. The Amendment B came out of our mini assembly as a direct response to HB 1840 in Tennessee, which allows medical professionals and social workers to turn away LGBT people if it goes against their religious beliefs, and allows them to even inform LGBT people of why they are refusing to treat them, which is hurting people who are already hurt. I also wish to point out that the amendment does not say we are necessarily going to educate social workers and educators, but that we pledge to do so, which means we can pledge to do so when we ourselves are educated and able to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the delegate at the pro microphone.
Procedurals.
Sorry. I recognize the delegate at the procedure microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Danny Reb, First Unitarian Universalist Church of Detroit. I move to call the question on this amendment.
Is there a second? If this will require a vote, and those in favor of it means shutting down the debate. So all those in favor of calling the question, thank you very much. Opposed? The question succeeds, and we can now go back to debating the amendment. No. Where are we? Huh? We're still on B. We're still on B. Does anybody wish to speak in favor or against it? No, we've called the question. So those in favor of adding this amendment on line B, inserting after line 39, pledge to educate social workers and educators about transgender and gender nonconforming people's needs. All in favor, please raise your card. Easy answer. Thank you. Those opposed? The amendment passes. We can now return, I think with time, we have time to another amendment. I recognize the delegate at the amendment, Mike.
Marcus Foliano from the UU Church of Peoria, Illinois. I'd like to call to incorporate the unincorporated amendment D, line 36, inserting the definition of Fairness Act, because Fairness Act is very specific to local states. Other states, it's the Equality Act, so I think the definition being there is very important. It also is the only time that gender expression would be included in this resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second to that amendment? There is. So this amendment that we'll now vote in favor or against is on line 36, inserting the definition of the Fairness Act, and there's a fairly lengthy addition there. Commission on Social Witness did not incorporate that because it offers legal interpretation. So I'll go to the pro microphone. I'm sorry, I'm going to go to the con first and have you speak.
Yeah, Sally Gellert, Central Unitarian, Paramus, New Jersey. I am not opposing necessarily the sense of this amendment, but I think that it was covered by the additions to line 36 and 37. The extra sentence says typically what it will do, which is, a speculation, a legal interpretation that I can see why it was left out. I do understand the concern for including the word gender expression and,
Thank you very much. I go to the pro microphone and recognize the delegate there. I'm sorry?
The motion's out of time.
The debate is over. We are out of time. Thank you, but I have a question at the procedure mic.
Given the state, J. Clemmy, Worcester, Ohio, UU,
if legal aspect is why UUA thought it should not be included, could UUA legal comment on what's meant by that?
Would you like to comment on that? No. This was a CSW. This was a CSW decision to leave it out because it was a legal interpretation. I have someone at the procedures mic. I recognize the delegate there.
My name is Tim Atkins. I'm a UUA trustee. I make a motion to extend debate by 2 minutes so the maker of the amendment has a chance to speak pro.
There's a motion to extend by 2 minutes. Is there a second to that? Is there a second for that? Now, those in favor of extending the vote by 2 minutes, raise your card. Those opposed, a lovely courtesy to offer. Thank you for offering that. So let's go back to the, you getting your 10,000 steps in on your Fitbit today?
Absolutely.
I recognize the delegate at the pro microphone.
Thank you. Marcus Foliano, UU Church of Peoria, Illinois. As I had mentioned, the reason that I would like this amendment to be included is the use of Fairness Act is used specifically in states where the word equality doesn't really fit. It's not very popular. So having the definition of what the Fairness Act is gives us the ability to also advocate for equality acts. The national law is actually called the Equality Act. It is not the Fairness Act. And the other point was that this is the only point that gender expression would be included in the definition in this resolution. So we have 3 different things here: sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. So no matter what your gender identity is, no matter what your sexual orientation is, you can have a completely different gender expression, and that is something that you can also be discriminated against. So it's very important that that is included in this resolution.
Thank you. So we are out of time and we are ready to vote. I think we're ready to vote.
On the amendment.
On the amendment, yes. And what we're voting on is to include unincorporated amendment D, line 36, inserting the definition of the Fairness Act. And in consideration of your time, I think you can read that on the document. Are we okay with that? All in favor of approving this amendment, please raise your cards. Thank you. Opposed? The amendment passes and is incorporated into the document. Now, are we ready to return to the main motion and vote on this amendment as amended? The AIW. I have a delegate at the procedures microphone.
Jim Cravart Graham from the Church of the Larger Fellowship. I'd like to call the question on the main motion.
Thank you. The question has been called. Is there a second? There is a second. So now we're voting on whether we want to vote immediately after this vote. Those in favor of calling the question, raise your card. Thank you. Opposed? The question is called, and we are now ready to vote on the CSWF, Stop Hate, Protect and Support Our Transgender and Gender Non-conforming Family, as amended in this general session. Those in favor, raise your card. Thank you. Opposed? The motion, the AIW clearly passes. Thank you all for the spirited debate and the courtesies extended to one another. I very much appreciate it. So, are you ready to sing after that?